Welcome back to Aaron Johnson's Mystery in Rocky Mountain National Park. We're doing Chapter 7, 1880. The boy had traveled by moonlight for at least 3 hours. He didn't own a watch, but he could tell it was near midnight by the moon's position in the sky. It was early June, and the chill of the night air caused him to shiver. He decided to risk a small fire. He broke dead branches from a spruce tree and gathered dry moss from its higher branches. Taking a flint stick out of his pack, he scraped his knife against it, throwing sparks into the nest of moss until it ignited into a small orange flame. When he was warm, the boy pulled a small notebook from his jacket pocket. A ticket fell from its pages onto the ground. It read Union Pacific Railway, Denver. He picked the ticket up and placed it back into the journal, unwrapped the end of a small loaf of bread from a cloth, and ate his last bites of food. After writing some notes in the journal, he leaned back against a rock and shut his eyes. A sound in the distance jolted him awake. The fire was low. He listened. A series of sharp barks cut through the night. He hurried to extinguish the fire, swung his pack over his shoulder, and ran downhill. Now he could hear the voices of men. Racing through the forest, he found a creek and ran through it, hoping to throw the dogs off his scent. He stumbled over the slick, round rocks. The creek was a smart move, but it slowed his pace, and soon his boots were soaked through with water. To his right lay a broad and open glade. It was too exposed. He ran to the left, only to find that he was at the rim of a deep ravine. The voices and barks grew louder. He could hear the splash of water and the snap of branches. With nowhere else to go, he scrambled down the steep side of the gully by holding on to the trunks of a few aspen trees. Finding a narrow shelf of rock, he edged out onto it, leaning against the face of the cliff and tucking himself into the shadows. Seconds later, the dogs arrived at the top of the ravine, their barks echoing off its rock walls. 20 feet above him, hoofs tore the ground, and a horse blew a long sigh through its nostrils. The boy's legs shook from exhaustion, fear, and the cold, but he tried to stay still. He heard a man's voice. His trail stops here. Chances are he fell. We'll check the canyon in the morning to see if there's a body. The men turned their horses around and whistled for the dogs to follow. After waiting for the sounds to fade into the forest, the boy inched his way back to the steep side of the ravine and made his way back to the rim. When he'd left Pennsylvania 3 weeks ago, it had not been his plan to be running from cowboys. He gazed into the starry western sky where the snow-capped mountains gleamed an icy blue in the moonlight. Though he had already been locked up, chased down, and had nearly plunged to his death, this place called to him. The wilderness, the wildness of it felt like home, something he had never experienced before. Below him and far beyond the ravine, he spied little orange lights. He squinted, studying the spot until he realized they were lanterns being lit in the windows of a house. Smoke curled out its chimney. He continued surveying what appeared to be another ranch. There were fences and small barns, and he could now make out the dark shape of cattle gathered near a copse of trees behind the house. The place looked like a haven in the wilderness. Perhaps they needed help. Maybe he could work for food and a bed. And then again, they might hand him over to the men who were hunting him. Cold and weary, the boy decided to take a chance. Join us next time for Chapter 8.